Hello, I'm Chris from TechSpert, and today we're going to be having a good hard gander at the Poco. We're having a good hard gander at a fresh new budget-friendly smartphone, the Poco X5 Pro. It's essentially a rebranded, redesigned Redmi Note 12 Pro Speed Edition, which never actually emerged here in Blighty, and sports very similar specs to the previous Poco X4 Pro, except the performance has been given a proper boot up the arse. So let's whip it on out of the box, take you on a full tour of the specs, test out the camera, the game and all that good stuff, and for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! So first up, what's squirreled away inside this lovely yellow box besides the Poco X5 Pro 5G? Well, you got a chunky old 67 watt power adapter, bit of a USB cable, and as usual a lovely condom case you can keep your Poco X5 Pro protected. Well, that's basically it, nice and easy, job done. So now let's check out the phone. So the Poco X5 Pro, very much like the Poco X4 Pro, is a 6.67 inch blower. Thankfully it doesn't feel absolutely frickin' enormous though, mostly because those bezels surrounding the display aren't too chunky. And it's a completely flat panel, as you can see there as well. The Poco X5 Pro does have a good heft to it, despite the fact that it is basically constructed from plastic. You have a plastic frame surrounding the edges, and then around back more placky. Albeit glorious yellow plastic, it is that bright yellow Poco colour we all know and love. You can, however, also grab the Poco X5 Pro in slightly more sedate colours like black if you don't want to be absolutely screaming for attention as you're strutting down the street checking your Twitters or whatever. Personally, I gotta say, I rather like it. It really stands out from the crowd, and I especially like how that power button is also highlighted in yellow. And if you didn't have that yellow finish, it could be a rather bland design here on the Poco X5 Pro, and quite similar to previous Poco handsets as well. Although at least the branding isn't too insane here compared with some earlier efforts. And also that camera bump isn't too bumpy, it doesn't stick too far out of the arse. So let's check out the actual software, and what you've got running on here is a Poco-fied version of MiUI 14 based on Android 13, so this is the latest, freshest Android. And while it's not perfect, I do get on with MiUI a lot more than I used to, because it's a mostly stock Android vibe, but with little additions like the control center, which are actually quite useful. This just separates out all of your toggles and also your smart home shenanigans from your notification center, makes it a bit easier to access. You've still got all the regular stuff like the Discover feed. You've also got that apps tray to hide away any bits that you don't want cluttering your desktops. However, unfortunately with MiUI you do get absolutely stacks of crapware, even in the Poco version now. So for instance, stuff that I didn't personally install includes Agoda, AliExpress, Amazon Shopping, Booking.com, Crazy Juicer, which just looks like that fruit slicing thing from back in the day. Lots more crap games, TikTok, oh good old Tile Fun, my favourite. Queek is a new one on me. I've got no idea what on earth that is, but thankfully most of this stuff you can uninstall. It just takes a bit of time to bloody get around to doing it. Thankfully you shouldn't be in a rush to free up any storage, because Poco has generously bestowed you with 256 gigs of space on the X5 Pro. And considering with expensive blowers like iPhones you'll be paying probably about 200 or 300 extra quid just to get that level of storage, that's some impressive shit. And at least that means it's not quite as galling that there's no micro SD memory card expandability here on the Poco X5 Pro, which is a shame because quite a few other budget and mid-range smartphones do still offer that. You got lots of other bonus bits stacked on here that are actually worth checking out. So the likes of the security app is pretty good. This not only helps you to optimize your smartphone, give it a deep clean and everything, but you've got a few extra bits chucked on. So for instance, you can set up a block list for anyone who really gets on your tits. Particularly good one for marketing spammy bollocks. Can also help you to diagnose any problems you're having with your smartphone. You can set up dual accounts on various social media apps. And there's the excellent Game Turbo feature as well, which we'll touch on in a bit. But of course, one big question with MiUI smartphones is how often will they be updated and how long will they be supported for? And generally things are getting better. We're starting to see at least a couple of years of support for most smartphones these days, even the more budget friendly ones. But as you can see there, the security update already slightly behind, November 2022. As for the fingerprint sensor, well, it's not an in-display effort, it's actually built into that cute little dinky yellow power button. So just tap your digit against the surface and as you can see, you're straight in, no hanging about. Gotta say though, the clickiness of that button is incredibly loud. A minor grumble, but still worth a mention. You've also got face unlock support on here as usual, which again is absolutely fine as long as the room isn't too ambient. When things get pretty dark, it does seem to struggle to identify you. Now the Poco X5 Pro sports a 6.67-inch AMOLED display, the same as the Poco X4 Pro, and it is a proper corker for the price, although quite a few budget to mid-range handsets these days do offer an OLED display. The overall specs are identical to the previous generation. You've got Full HD plus resolution, so pictures are nice and crisp, 120Hz refresh as well, so creamy smooth. And as this is AMOLED tech, of course, you've got gorgeous contrast. You've got nice punchy colors as well because the default color mode is set to vivid. And as usual, the selfie cam only slightly gets in the way when you go full screen. It's quite dinky. I would prefer it to be wedged away in a corner, but hey-ho. And certainly when you boost that brightness all the way up to maximum levels, have absolutely no issues seeing the Poco X5 Pro outside, even when it's quite sunny. Kind of hard to test in the UK in January, got to say, but yeah, seems up to the task. And the Poco X5 Pro also sports a stereo speaker setup. You've got one speaker here on the top edge of the phone and the other housed here on the bottom edge. Let's see if it's actually any good. Massive fan of that Galaxy S22 Ultra design. It's just a little bit too plain and simple for my own personal taste, especially for a blow that costs over £1,000. I gotta say, max out that volume and the Poco X5 Pro's stereo speaker setup packs a proper punch that'll easily be audible even in quite a noisy environment, and the clarity isn't terrible either. Alternatively, you do have a headphone jack with high-res audio support, or you can stream, of course, via Bluetooth. So far, so very familiar. The Poco X5 Pro could almost be a clone of the previous generation, the X4 Pro, but one area where they do differ considerably is the performance. Because while the previous generation was powered by the Snapdragon 695, that gets an upgrade here in the X5 model to the Snapdragon 778G, as also found in some other mid-ranges like the Nothing phone. And that was backed here in my review model by 8 gigs of RAM, and that proved more than up to the task of playing Genshin Impact on the highest graphics quality settings with a pleasingly smooth frame rate. You do get the usual gaming toolbar here on the Poco X5 Pro, so I pulled that out, jammed on all the performance settings, and then settled in for a long old session of getting my ass absolutely handed to me by stupid massive rock things. And even though I was playing for quite a wee while, I didn't notice any sudden obvious drops in that frame rate. The game just played as expected, and that flat display was perfectly responsive as well. So besides the obvious limitations in my own gaming abilities, it was an enjoyable overall experience. And as well as the performance boost stuff, that gaming mode packs all of the usual features, including voice changing shenanigans and do not disturb, so you can really get involved in the game. So overall great stuff, but there's been bugger all changes when it comes to the battery tech, which isn't a massive shock because you've once again got a 5000 mAh capacity cell crammed in here, which is certainly sizable enough with 67 watt wired charging, so not the best you can get at this sort of price anymore, but still good enough to power this thing up in a jiffy. And no, you don't get wireless charging support, but only a very select number of handsets around the sort of mid-range price point like the Nothing phone do still offer wireless charging. So let's end this lovely little unboxing with a squint at that camera tech, and shock horror, there's no changes. Again, it once again sports a 108 megapixel Samsung HM2 sensor backed by a basic 8 megapixel ultra wide angle and 2 megapixel macro shooter. No real surprises when it comes to the camera app either. You can quickly and easily swap between the 108 meg main camera and that ultra wide angle shooter like so. In the regular photo mode, that primary sensor uses 9-in-1 pixel binning just to help brighten up your shots in more ambient environments, but you can jump straight into a 108 megapixel mode if you do want to shoot at the maximum resolution. It can be quite handy if the lighting conditions are good, so you can crop into a shot without losing too much detail, but otherwise just stick to the auto mode. This does a pretty decent job for your everyday snaps. Certainly in good lighting, you'll get some nice crisp, detail-packed photos, some natural looking colors. And even when things do get a bit more ambient, I didn't find that there was too much noise creeping into my snaps. Just make sure your subject stays still, otherwise you will get a blurry finish. But while it's not quite as dependable and flexible as the likes of the Pixel 6a, I was more than happy with the results here on the Poco X5 Pro. And you got plenty of other bonus modes you can piddle about with, including a full-on Pro mode if you want to manually tweak the likes of the white balance to suit the particular scene. You got a portrait mode to add a nice bokeh style effect in the background, and this seems to even deal with crazy hair like this. And because you now have that stronger performance, when you come to shooting video, you do actually have a 4K option, unlike the previous generation which topped out at full HD. And when you're shooting inside, things do look generally a bit gloomy and grainy and crappy, but in good lighting, you'll get some very respectable results, plenty of detail packed into every frame, the audio pickup is fine, and the stabilization's decent too. And for your selfie needs here on the Poco X5 Pro 5G, you've got a 16 megapixel selfie cam. It seems to do a pretty decent job as long as the lights aren't too low. The portrait mode, light edge detection isn't fantastic, has to be said, but you know, whatever. And if you want to shoot some video using that front-facing camera, well, it tops off at full HD resolution, either 30 or 60 frames per second. Microphones do a pretty decent job of picking up your voice when you're doing a bit of Skyping, Zooming or whatever, so all good. And there you have it, my lovelies. That in a delicious little nutshell is the fresh new Poco X5 Pro 5G. Not exactly vastly different from the previous generation, but the boost of performance is definitely more than welcome, means gamers will be highly satisfied indeed. And of course, further benefits such as the ability to shoot in 4K. So what do you reckon? Are you tempted by the Poco X5 Pro 5G? I don't have the full UK pricing at the time that I shot this video, but I'll bung all of that lovely info down in the description below. Please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell for more on the latest and greatest tech, and have yourselves a really wonderful rest of the week. Cheers everyone, love you.